and modify. Stop, drop it low, but pick it up carefully. Work them glutes like you in physical therapy.
So welcome back to my channel, guys. Today we will discuss about the small intestine, anatomy of the small intestine. The longest part of the alimentary canal, which is actually 6 meters long, and it extends from the pylorus of the stomach to the ileocecal junction. The greater part of the digestion and food absorption take place in the small intestine. It is basically divided into three main parts: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. So the first part, duodenum, is a C-shaped tube around 10 inches long, join the stomach to the jejunum. It receives the opening of bile, the pancreatic duct from the duodenum, the curve around the head of the pancreas. The first part, on its first inch, 2.5 centimeter. The duodenum resembles of the stomach in that it is covered on its anterior and posterior surface with the peritoneum and has lesser omentum attached to its upper border, and greater omentum is attached to the lower border. Lesser sac lies behind this short segment. The remainder of the duodenum is retroperitoneal, being only partially covered by the peritoneum. Okay, as you can see here, these are the four parts of the duodenum. The first part is actually 5 centimeter, which is and the second part is which is also called as the descending part, is 7.5 centimeter. The third part, transverse part, is 10 centimeter, and the fourth part, which is also called ascending part, is 2.5 centimeter. There are two flexures, which is superior duodenal flexure and inferior duodenal flexure, as you can see here and here. Okay, this till here is the first part, and then till here is the second, till here third, and the fourth part. So the superior, descending, inferior, and ascending part of the duodenum. Okay, the duodenum is situated in the umbilical region and the epigastric region, and for the purpose of description, it is divided into four parts. The first part begin at the pylorus and run upward and backward to the transpyloric plane at the level of the first lumbar vertebra. Its relations are as follows: anteriorly, it found the quadrate lobe of the liver, the gallbladder. Posteriorly, it found the lesser sac, which is first inch only, the gastroduodenal artery, the bile duct, portal vein, inferior vena cava. While superiorly, it found the entrance into the lesser sac, which is called as epiploic foramen. Inferiorly, it have the head of the pancreas. Okay, so as you can see here, anterior to the first part of the duodenum is the gallbladder, the quadrate lobe of the liver, and posteriorly you will find here the gastroduodenal artery, head of the pancreas, the portal vein, inferior vena cava, and here is the foramen of the epiploica. So this is the structures that found anterior to the first part of the duodenum. Second part of the duodenum, it runs vertically downward in front of the hilum of the right kidney on the right side of the second and third lumbar vertebra. About halfway down it to its medial border, the bile duct and the main pancreatic duct together form the ampulla of water that pierce the duodenal wall to form the major duodenal papilla. The accessory pancreatic duct, if present in some individuals, only maybe in 10% of individuals, open into the duodenum a little bit higher up on the minor duodenal papilla. So this is accessory duodenal or minor duodenal papilla, the major duodenal papilla, which at this point, which is called as ampulla of water. Here is the ampulla of water. For relations, anteriorly, the second part of the duodenum contains fundus of the gallbladder, right lobe of the liver, transverse colon, and coils of the small intestine. While posteriorly, it have the hilum of right kidney, the right ureters, and laterally, it have the ascending colon, the right colic flexure, and the right lobe of the liver. While medially, it have the head of the pancreas, the bile duct, and the main pancreatic duct, as you can see here. This is the anterior relation, and it contains the gallbladder, right lobe of the liver, the transverse colon, the transverse mesocolon, coils of the small intestine here, while posteriorly it has the kidney, the right renal vessels, the right edge of the inferior vena cava, and psoas muscle. So third part of the duodenum runs horizontally to the left of the subcostal plane, passing in front of the vertebral column and following the lower margin of the head of pancreas. So the relations are as follows. Anteriorly, it has the root of the mesentery of small intestine, superior mesenteric vessel, coils of jejunum, while posteriorly it have the right ureter, right psoas muscle, inferior vena cava, aorta, inferior mesenteric artery, the gonadal vessels, and medially it have the head of the pancreas, laterally it have the coil of the jejunum. As you can see here, this is the third part, and it have anteriorly superior mesenteric artery, the root of mesenteries, the coils of the jejunum, while posteriorly it have the psoas major muscle, the ureter here, and gonadal vessels here, which is coming from the aorta, inferior vena cava here, the abdominal aorta here, and the inferior mesenteric artery. So it runs upward and left the duodenal flexure. Duodenojejunal flexure. The flexure is held in the position by the peritoneal fold that suspends the suspensory ligament of the duodenum, which is attached to the right crus of the diaphragm. So its relations are, this is actually the fourth part, and the relations of the fourth part is actually the root of mesentery, coils of the jejunum, transverse colon, and posteriorly it have the left margin of the aorta, middle border of the muscles, and the inferior mesenteric vein and the sympathetic chain. You can see here, this is the fourth part of the duodenum. It have anteriorly the transverse colon and the mesocolon. Posteriorly it have the sympathetic chain, the inferior mesenteric vein, the left gonadal vein, and the left psoas muscle, major muscle. So the histology of the small intestine. Small intestine contains four main layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis propria, and the serosa. So the mucosa of the small intestine contain epithelium, lamina propria, and the muscularis mucosa. The submucosa and the muscularis propria, which is the proper layer of the muscle of the small intestine, contain the circular muscle, which is the innermost muscle, and the outer muscle, which are the actually longitudinal muscle. So let's discuss it one by one. So as you can see here, this is the mucosa, this is the submucosa, and this is the muscularis mucosa, and the upper to this one is the serosa, and this one, the peritoneal covering the small intestine, is the mesentery. As you can see here, this is the lumen, the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis propria, and the subserosa. So let's discuss it one by one. So epithelium, which contains the villi. We will discuss the epithelium first of all. So it contains villi, which is the projection, which is upward projection, and it have crypts of Lieberke, which is a continuation of the villus, that is the downward projection of the villi in the mucosal layer. The plica circularis, which is also called as wall of Kirkrieg's, which is a permanent crescent fold of the mucous membrane found in the lower part of the duodenum and the jejunum. The Brenner's gland is another structure that is found in the epithelium, which contains the mucosa of the duodenum. Alkaline duodenum, it is actually alkaline based mucus is secreted to project the duodenal lining from the acid secreted in the stomach. These are the glands, these secrete the alkaline based mucus. Next is actually it contains the simple columnar epithelium cell, the microvilli, which are actually a brush like projection that is found above the columnar cells, and the lacteal, which is actually a vessel present beneath the villi, and it also contains some cells that are anterocele, Paneth cells, M cells, goblet cells, stem cells, and endocrine cells. You can see here, the single one is actually the villus, and these are called as the intestinal crypts or crypts of Lieberke, and this one is actually the lacteal, And if we take this one structure, we will find here the microvilli, the membrane proteins. So we will discuss it here. As you can see here, internal lumen which contain this structure. So now we will discuss it in detail. Okay, the lumen, in centrally it have the lumen, you have the glands, and you are having the muscularis mucosa, the submucosa, circular muscles, the longitudinal muscles, and the serosa. The next upper to the serosa is the peritoneum. So within the mucosa we have the villi, the tubular glands, and crypt of lubricant, and the Brunner glands. So the epithelium cells. Now we will discuss the cells that is found within the epithelium that have the major role. First of all, we will discuss the enterocytes. It gives movement to the villi because it have actin and myosin. They are tall molecules passes through the space in between them. Have a simple columnar cells. It is a basal oval. It have basal oval nucleus. So the next cells are actually the enterocytes give movement to the microvilli or villi that help in the motility of the intestine. So the next cells are the goblet cells. It secrete mucus, which increases mucus. Okay, the goblet cells increases from duodenum to large intestine. It secretes mucin that add together with water to form the mucus. The niche cells provide immunity because it controls the intestinal flora, which is actually a neutral bacteria that is found within the small intestine. Mechanism of action is actually it secretes lysozymes, which act as zymogens in the stomach. So they are basically the immune cells. So the enteroendocrine cells, they secrete the cholecystokinin and the gastric inhibitory peptide in the small intestine. Next cells are the stem cells. Stem cells are actually found within the small intestine to just make the those cells that is required within the small intestine. Okay, the next cell is the specialized M cell. They are broad and flat, present at the pair patches, abundant in the ileum. It is the dome-like surface and have microfold at the head and pouch at base. When any pathogen that reach the intestine, unfortunately, the cell recognize it and send it to the pouch at the base, where they have dendritic cells, which further present it to the T lymphocyte, then to B lymphocyte, then antibodies form, and then enterocyte kill the pathogen. So these are the cells that is found within the epithelium of the small intestine within the mucosa, as you can see here. Okay, so this one hole is the villus. Within the villus you are having the microvilli, and the structure that move down to the villus is called as the crypts of lubricant. So the next layer within the mucosa is the lamina propria. It is basically a connective tissue cells, contain blood vessels, and have gut associated lymphatic tissues. It also have pairs patches, and there is no villi and crypt, so it is smooth in structure. So the next beneath the lamina propria there is a muscularis layer. Next layer of the small intestine is submucosa. So it is a loose areolar tissue, contain plexus, blood vessel, lymphatics, and the Brunner's gland are present only in the duodenum, which is different from the intestinal gland. The function of the Brunner's gland is basically it neutralize the acidic kind because it have bicarbonates, glycoproteins, mucus, and act like as an alkaline agent. So the next, the uppermost part of the small intestine is actually serosa. It is a loose areolar made connective tissue connected by the mesothelium, surrounded the small intestine from the outer surface and help intestine to decrease resistance. This layer is actually connected to the peritoneum. Okay, so the main difference from welcome back to my channel, guys. Today in this lecture we will discuss about the difference between the histology of the duodenum and to the duodenum from duodenum to ileum. So the plica circularis is basically start at the second part of the duodenum, and it is present in the jejunum, and it is present till the proximal part of the ileum, but not present in the distal part of the ileum. The villus are only in the at the duodenum. It is having a leaf-like structure and tall villus and tall in shape. In jejunum, they are finger-like and have short structure, while in the ileum, it is the shortest and absent in the distal part. The goblet cells start from duodenum. It increases in number in the jejunum, and it increases more in the ileum, and it further increases in the large intestine. The Brenner's gland start from the duodenum and is absent in the jejunum and ileum. So the Pierce patches are absent in the duodenum and jejunum, while present in the ileum, because it is having the immune function. So in short, the plica circularis is absent at first of the duodenum and last part of the ileum, while villi are taller and leaf-like at the duodenum, finger-like and smaller at the ileum, while shorter to absent in the ileum. At the ileum, Brenner's gland present only at the duodenum. Pierce patches only found in the ileum, and goblet cells increase from duodenal first part till the large intestine. So mucous membrane and the duodenal papilla. So the mucous membrane is basically thick, smooth in the first part of the duodenum. However, it is thrown a various circular fold called plica circularis in the remainder of the duodenum. The small duodenal elevation is called major duodenal papilla, which is located at the site where the bile duct and then the main pancreatic duct pierce the bile duct, and the main pancreatic duct pierce the medial wall of the second part. The accessory pancreatic duct, if present, open into the duodenum on small papilla 0.75 inches above the major duodenal papilla. As you can see here, this is minor duodenal papilla, this is major duodenal papilla. So histology of small intestine. Small intestine is lined by the simple columnar epithelium, which consists primarily of absorptive cells as enterocytes with goblet cells, and occasionally enteroendocrine cells. In crypt, the epithelium also includes Pennant cells and stem cells. Blood supply of the duodenum. So superior pancreatoduodenal artery and inferior pancreatoduodenal artery. The superior pancreatoduodenal artery, which is a branch of gastroduodenal artery, supplies the upper half of the duodenum, and inferior pancreatoduodenal artery, the branch of superior mesenteric artery, supplies the lower half. Okay, so now we will discuss it from the celiac trunk. The abdominal aorta divided into the celiac trunk, which further divided into the gastroduodenal artery, which is further divided into pancreatoduodenal artery, and pancreatoduodenal artery further supplies into the anterior and the posterior. They are exposed with an anterior and posterior superior mesenteric artery. So the next next branch of the gastroduodenal artery is the superior duodenal artery, and right gastro-omental artery. Next, in the second branch of the celiac artery is splenic artery, and third branch is the common hepatic artery. Hepatic drainage vessels. Lymph vessels follows the arteries of the duodenum. The upper duodenal drains up through the pancreatoduodenal nodes to the gastroduodenal node, then to the celiac nodes. The lower duodenal drains downward through the pancreatoduodenal node to the superior mesenteric node around the margin of the superior mesenteric artery. The nerve supplies sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve derived from the celiac and superior mesenteric plexus nerve duodenum. As you can see here, I will discuss it later. So the vagus nerve and the pelvic splanchnic nerves, these are the parasympathetic innervations, while the sympathetic innervations are the nerves that coming from T5 to T10, T11 are called as the greater splanchnic nerve that move anterward, forward, and supply the celiac ganglion, and the T12 nerve arise from the T12 is the least from the nerve that arise from T10 to 11 is least splanchnic nerve that goes and supplied to the superior mesenteric ganglion, and the least splanchnic nerve that arises from T12 is it also supply the superior mesenteric ganglion, and the next nerve that arises from L1 to L3 is the lumbar splanchnic nerve. The nerves supply of the GIT. The sympathetic innervation is from T5 to L3, while parasympathetic is from vagus nerve, and the pelvic splanchnic which arises from S2 to S3. Then there is another system that control the whole gut motility is called as enteric nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is having the greater splanchnic, lesser splanchnic, the least splanchnic, and the lumbar splanchnic nerve, while parasympathetic is the celiac parasympathetic nerve supplies the celiac plexus and the pelvic splanchnic nerves. So enteric nervous system is the third branch of the autonomic nervous system, which is having branches. So they are basically control the myenteric and meningeal plexus. So the myenteric plexus function of the myenteric plexus is to increase the tone of the gut, control contraction, velocity and intensity, and motility throughout the gut. Both these plexes are embedded in the wall of GIT from esophagus to the anus. So the meningeal plexus, which is also called submucosal plexus, control the local sensation, blood flow to the gut, and local muscle movement. So the nerves in the enteric nervous systems are three main types of nerves: the ascending, descending, and sensory nerves. The sensory nerve sense the stimulation of receiving, and it also sense the chemical changes. Both have innervation from ascending and descending neurons. Mechanism of action: when we eat food, the food enters from mouth, become bolus in the mouth, then becomes chyme in the duodenum or stomach. When it reaches to small intestine, it stretches and distends the intestinal muscle. Sensory neurons are stimulated, both submucosal, chemical compositor, and subserosal. At these, these sensory nerves had also given branches to the longitudinal and circular muscle of the small intestine, and these muscles are stimulated. Ascending neurons receive excitatory neurotransmitter acetylcholine and substance P to the circular muscle behind the bolus and cause contraction of the circular muscle behind the bolus. At the same time, the descending network of neuron releases nitric oxide and vasoactive intestinal peptides to the longitudinal muscle to relax the longitudinal muscles. So as you can see here, these are the myenteric plexus, which are found in the submucosa. These are longitudinal muscle, these are the circular muscles, and the serosa. So the next, but in front of the bolus, the relaxation of the circular muscle causes the bolus to move forward. Therefore, in front of the bolus, descending neuron releases inhibitory neurotransmitter like nitric oxide and vasoactive intestinal peptides. So at the same time, the longitudinal muscle releases excitatory neurotransmitter acetylcholine and substance P to the longitudinal muscle and cause contraction. So in sum, if we discuss in sum, behind the bolus, the contraction of circular muscle and relaxation of the longitudinal muscle occurs, while in front of the bolus, the relaxation of circular muscle and contraction of the longitudinal muscle occur to cause the peristaltic movement, as you can see here. Behind the bolus, ACH construction cause constriction, and here it causes relaxation. So the fold move in this to this direction, the chyme, and then they contract, and this part relax to peristalse the chyme. So this is the example. So role of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system also have an role over the small intestine, whereas many scientists suggest that the movement of the small intestine or the mortality of the small intestine is entirely controlled by the enteric nervous system. Okay, so the sympathetic nervous system control it innervate the myenteric and meningeal plexus, and same is with the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system only control the fight flight mode, and it allow the it stop the activity of both mesenteric and malar plexus. It decrease gut motility, decrease blood flow, decrease the secretory activity, while on the other hand the parasympathetic nervous system act oppositely. So jejunum and the ileum. So the next part of the small intestine are the jejunum and the ileum. Together they are measured as 20 feet from the 6 meters long. The jejunum make the upper 2/5 of the length. The jejunum begins at the duodenojejunal flexure. So its location is actually the coils of the jejunum and ileum are freely mobile and are attached to the posterior abdominal wall by a fan-shaped of the peritoneum known as the mesentery of the small intestine. The long free edge of the fold enclosing the mobile intestine. The short root of the fold is continuous with the parietal on the posterior abdominal wall along a line that extends downward and to the right from the left side of the second lumbar vertebra to the region of the right sacroiliac joint. The root of the mesentery permit the entrance and exit of the branches of the superior mesenteric artery and vein, lymph vessels, nerves into the space between two layers of the peritoneum forming the mesentery. So the following features are distinguish the jejunum from ileum. So jejunum lie coiled in the upper part of the peritoneum cavity below the left side of the transverse mesocolon, and the ileum is in the lower part of the cavity and in the pelvis and found in the pelvis. The jejunum is wider, broader, thicker walled and redder than ileum. The jejunal feels thicker because the permanent enfolding of the mucous membrane plica circularis are larger in more numerous and closely set in the jejunum. Whereas in the upper part of the ileum they are smaller, wider, separated, and in the lower part they are absent. As you can see here, and this is the duodenum. This is the ileum, and this is and here you will find the jejunum, which is found up to the aorta. Okay, so the jejunal mesentery is attached to the posterior abdominal wall above the left of the aorta, whereas the ileal mesentery is attached below and to the right of the aorta. The jejunal vessels form only one or two arcades with long and infrequent branches called as the vasa recta passing in the intestinal wall. The ileum receive numerous short terminal and many numbers terminal vasa recta that rise from a series of three or four or even more arcades. At the jejunal end of the mesentery, the fat deposited near the root and scanty near the intestinal wall. At the ileal end of the mesentery, the fat is deposited throughout so that it extends from the root to the intestinal wall. Aggregation of lymphoid tissues, which is called as Peyer's patches, are present in the mucous membrane of the lower ileum along the antemesenteric border. In the living, these may be visible through the wall of the ileum from outside. So as you can see here, this is the jejunum. It is having some branches from the arteries, while the ileum have many branches of the vessels to the ileum from the arteries. As you can see here, the fat concentration in the ileum is more compared to the jejunum. Blood supply, superior mesenteric artery, the intestinal branch arise from the left side of the artery and runs in the mesentery to reach the gut. They anastomose with one another to form the series of arc-like arcades. Multiple straight vessels like vasa recta, arteria, and recta branch off arcade and runs to the wall of the intestine. The ileocolic artery also supplies the lower part of the ileum. The vein which corresponds to the branch of the superior mesenteric artery and drain into the superior mesenteric artery. So the lymphatic drainage, lymphatic lymph vessel passes through many intermediate mesenteric nodes and finally reach the superior mesenteric node, which is situated around the origin of the superior mesenteric artery, as you can see here. So venous supply As you can see here, this is the superior mesenteric vein, and you will find the inferior mesenteric vein over here. As you can see here, this is the inferior mesenteric vein. The superior mesenteric vein take all the venous blood from the ascending colon, the appendix, the cecum, the ileum, and the some part of the transverse colon and the duodenum, while the inferior mesenteric vein take the venous flow from the sigmoid colon, the descending colon, the rectum, and some part of the transverse colon, and it will further goes upward and form a structure with the splenic vein, and then it will goes upward to form the portal circulation, and this portal circulation will go to the liver, and then it moves towards the inferior vena cava. Nerve supply of the jejunum and ileum is from the T10 to T11 superior splanchnic nerve and T12 to least splanchnic nerve sympathetically, while parasympathetically they are supplied by the vagus nerve, which is further anastomosed with
If it hurts, then modify. Stop, drop it low, but pick it up carefully. Work them glutes like you in physical therapy.